Hey guys, welcome. So let's talk about some multi-cloud with the HashiCorp suite of tools.
Let's do it.
With me, I have Kevin, Elliot, and I'm Dave. Do you guys want to do intros? You just want to get into it and have a little conversation?
Yeah, let's do it real quick. I'm Elliot Nichols. I'm one of the solution architects with Insight.
Kevin Booth, solution architect with Insight.
Dave Benedict, solution architect with Insight. Wow, that's quite a diverse group we've got here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this. So our clients are looking to go multi-cloud, right? We're seeing that
maybe
demand.
they're looking to, maybe they weren't, but they found themselves in that position.
All right, well, expand on that. What does that mean?
That means by way of acquisition or splinter business units, they may have found themselves in a multi-cloud setup, whether they liked it or not.
So commonly, I think people maybe confuse multi-cloud with, oh, I'm going to take one application and I'm going to spread it out across 3 clouds. Is that what we're talking about here?
I mean, it can be, but I think for the most part, enterprises just stumble their way into multi-cloud solutions. They didn't necessarily plan it. Those that did probably have very good reasons and probably have the talent to be able to maintain and safely deploy solutions like that. But I'd say the majority of the larger enterprise customers just by one way or another have found themselves in the position of being able or of having to support multiple clouds.
And that can vary, like the solution or the reasons to go multi-cloud might vary, whether it's best of breed solutions. Maybe one cloud does big data a lot better and it's just an all around better solution just for that piece. So clients might use that just for that. And then another cloud that's better at one other thing. Or maybe all you need is just storage for disaster recovery or something like that. That puts you into a multi-cloud scenario that you need to manage now, multiple clouds.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when it comes to that management, I mean, where do we see our clients maybe stumble a little bit? Where are the challenges?
Well, they're all different. They all have their idiosyncrasies, and everyone has to learn that. Oftentimes, clients will assign different teams to manage different clouds. And what we really want as practitioners is some layer of insulation there, something that lets us reuse and repurpose different maybe code or maybe ideas or maybe thought processes to the other clouds so that we don't have to restaff every cloud or have special skill sets. And that's where HashiCorp tools really shine for us.
Right. So we're kind of abstracting away the cloud. It's just a commodity, right? We don't really care.
Yeah.
Except in certain cases, maybe where there's a feature or availability that we want, but we don't really care. We just need to program something or have a common workflow, right? So you mentioned HashiCorp. Let's expand on that. This is about HashiCorp. So what the heck is HashiCorp? Who is HashiCorp? Why do I care?
Basically, they have something called the cloud operating model. And as we've never had a name for it. We've been employing it. We've been doing that. It's all coming to this situation with all these multiple clouds where everything's becoming a commodity. So the cloud operating model has a connect, run, provision, secure, and they have a tool purpose built for each layer of the cloud operating model. So if we were to develop skill sets to apply to the cloud operating model, we can take those workloads and those different things with us and apply them to multiple clouds much easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does. So Elliot, the bottom layer of this cloud operating model that Kevin touched on is this provision layer. Where does HashiCorp fit in the provision layer? What do they offer there?
Yeah, Terraform is their provisioning tool. What it does is it abstracts, all the different cloud deployment, custom deployment processes into kind of a single configuration language that allows you to do infrastructure as code to not only deploy but to manage and reconfigure those assets over their life cycle.
So I think one of the common misconceptions in that provision layer is I write in Terraform, give me a VM, and then I point it at a cloud, but that's not really what happens.
No, not at all. I mean, you share the same underlying configuration language, but each of the cloud resources has their own specification on what attributes are supported when you configure that particular resource. So, that misconception is pretty common. People want to just declare a VM as code and say, go give it to me in all these other clouds with one block of code, and that's really just not reality. Because all the different the cloud providers just have different configuration options available to them that are not necessarily equal across the board.
But Terraform's really, we're getting a lot of demand for Terraform, so it must offer something, right? Like what is it giving me when it comes to multi-cloud that I'm not getting with maybe the cloud native tools, Kevin?
Well, it's not just the multi-cloud scenario. Why we're seeing so much interest in Terraform, I would say it's the repeatability and what it offers that's more unique compared to the cloud native automation tooling like ARM templates or CloudFormation or GCP deployments. Terraform has a concept of state, which doesn't exist in those other three cloud native deployments. The state can be reconciled against your code and what exists in the cloud, telling you what's going to change ahead of time. So that makes me a lot more comfortable when I'm say, going to change 120 virtual machines out in production to 1,200 or something like that.
You don't like throwing those ARM templates over the wall and crossing your fingers and hoping and praying that it does what you want?
Well, right. If I forget a couple zeros and I put that 1,200 down to 1 or 2 or 12, I'm in trouble. But I would see that with Terraform. I would see that ahead of time, like, oh man, whoops. So we would see that in our pipelines.
So that's an example of a common workflow that we're seeing across whatever I'm pointing it at, right? So if it's any of the major public clouds or even potentially some of my own private clouds or hybrid clouds, right? Same workflow.
It's the same workflow, and it works against public clouds. And to Elliot's point about the HashiCorp configuration language, that's in the public cloud space, we would have to learn each one of those tool sets. In the Terraform case, we just need to learn Terraform and then the backend cloud. In the first case, we have to learn both.
Right, and I guess that would help when it comes to sort of breaking down those silos and those communities of practice, that all the good things you want in those empowered and high-performing DevOps teams.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
So moving up the cloud operating model stack here, we just talked about the provision layer. So the next layer is the secure layer. Talk to me about what that means, Elliot, in light of sort of how, we're used to doing security. We build a castle with a moat around it. We can pull up the drawbridge and keep the bad guys out, right? So what does this secure layer look like in the modern data center?
Yeah, I think when you go back to the cloud operating model, you go from, IP-based services to services that are really identified, not by their IP necessarily, but by their identity. So you need to be able to track that identity and have services be able to securely connect to each other. That's all traced back to that identity, whether it's a service or user interacting with the different systems in one cloud or another. Vault gives you that capability of kind of keeping all of your secret data safe and available, synchronized between clouds. And it's really that single source of truth for all things that are secret: passwords, certificates, keys, really any, you can put any data you want in there. If you want to encrypt an entire file or JSON block, you can shove it into Key Vault or into Vault.
Yeah,
right.
Very powerful. Yeah, it's very powerful. Like has a myriad of authentication mechanisms, so we aren't just tied to access that single source of truth information just by a username and password, for example. We can tie into a million different things, whether it's SSH authentication, username and password be one of them, Azure Active Directory identity, anything token based. The ways to access that data are integrate into just about any workflow that you need. So that makes it a lot simpler.
So it's my single source of truth for secrets, and I can authenticate it to it with an identity that I can back with anything, essentially.
Right, whether a user or even a system, you can have that single identity inside a Vault.
Great. Yeah. All right, so that's our secure layer. So moving up, again, we're going to the connect layer. Tell me a little bit about that, Elliot.
Yeah, this is the product that HashiCorp has in this space is Console. It really glues all of your services together and allows you to discover services between not just a single cloud, but multiple clouds. You can have your services come online and register into Console, and then they can easily discover themselves inside the same cluster or inside the same region, inside the same cloud or multi-cloud. In addition, they've recently offered some of the this service segmentation and intentions-based networking that you'd find with like a service discovery and all those tools around service meshes that are out there today. Consul just gives you that very just a much simpler tool to connect service to service and do that in secure fashion.
So it's a nice evolution from IP-based and DNS solutions. And then the top layer here on the cloud operating model is the run layer. So Kevin, tell me a little bit about Nomad.
Nomad is a workload scheduling and orchestration management tool. I really like it because it's lightweight and simplistic compared to some of the other orchestration tools out there. Whether I'm running containers, and this is with Nomad, whether I'm running containers or not, maybe some monolithic executables for applications that I don't even need to containerize, I can still run it through Nomad. So if I have
is that why you would choose it over like a Kubernetes, for example? So it can run other workloads, other containers? I mean,
potentially. One of the other nice things about Nomad is its extremely tight integration with Vault and Consul. So if you already have those products and run those products on those nodes or in that other cluster, then it automatically registers and you get all the coolness with that. Like your services running within Nomad will automatically register in Consul so that maybe another cloud can consume them just by name, things like that, which is awesome. That's very cool.
Very powerful. So those are the 4 layers that Hashi identifies in the cloud operating model. And I guess we'd be remiss not to talk about Sentinel, which is their policy as code. It's sort of the thread that weaves through the 4 layers of the cloud operating model, right? That's how we can govern across multiple clouds with a single implementation of policy as code, which is super powerful. Well, I guess that's all the time we have. So to wrap up, HashiCorp helps us operate multi-cloud or accelerate our multi-cloud adoption through common workflows and a common interface to multiple public clouds and hybrid clouds.